letting Ron in.
Hey, Kev,
Hey, Ron.
can you hear me?
Yeah, you
Okay,
sound
cool.
good. We're
Good.
we're we're recording right now. This isn't our podcast, but we do post a pre-show from time to time. So just so
Nice.
you know, all the bad things that you want to say, just hold them in for now.
All right.
Yeah, you sound good actually.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Liz
Yeah.
just got me this arm for the mic, so I think that
Oh,
that helps with quality.
that was John's situation as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah.
We were just talking about this. He has the snowball mic. I don't know whether you're familiar with it.
Hmm.
It's just like this little circle mic, spherical mic, and
Yeah, I
he
can
had it
see
on
it.
this.
Yeah.
He had it on this little stand and he would accidentally knock it every episode. He would accidentally hit it and knock
Yeah.
it down.
Yeah.
Um,
Mine was so we have a kitten, and he's constantly like running around. Like we would be recording, and he would like leap at the cords and drag the mic off the table, like in the middle of recording. So yeah,
they
you
could
might
probably
hear
be
them
a.
like yeah. They've been
They're
like fighting, so you might hear cats screeching on the on the recording, but
dogs fighting in the background is nothing. Animals fighting dogs for
yeah.
us is nothing unfamiliar to our listeners. By the way, John, this is Ron, that's John. I know you
Yeah,
guys
nice
figured
to
that
meet you,
out,
man.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
give an official introduction.
Yeah.
um
Cool.
yeah, very nice. Yeah. What kind of mic do you use? I'm not like a big tech junkie guy, but like
It's
what is it? What do you have?
what is it? It's
I don't know what kind of mic I use either, to be honest.
yeah. All I know, so I have yeah, I have a friend that he's been podcasting for like 15 years or whatever, and so this is like the one that he recommends. It's
Okay.
damn, it's like an ATRX or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it sounds great. It sounds
yeah,
awesome.
cool.
Um
Like,
yeah,
okay.
that's we were just kind of talking about that. We'll talk about this on the podcast too, but we actually just started a movie club ourselves. We're calling it Log
Oh,
Movie
cool.
Club.
Nice.
And it's so funny because John presented this idea to me and then we started reaching out to a couple people about doing it like 2 days before I learned about your podcast. And then I
Mm.
was like, oh, this will be fun because I can listen to his podcast about talking about movies and kind of
Yeah,
hear
cool.
what they do and sort of take some inspiration from it. So
Mhm.
it was actually really helpful to get a gauge
Oh, nice.
for
Yeah.
that. So yeah,
Cool. Yeah.
yeah.
I actually so the reason that I started that I do the pod with through another podcast. We were like we're patrons of this other podcast and we met in their Discord and like
No.
it's like yeah, there's like probably a good 600 people in this Discord and like I don't know, there's maybe 15 movie podcasts that all focus on like a different thing. And so we're like, oh, nobody ever talks about like, Latin American movies. So we should do that because we're like three of like maybe the seven Latinos in there. So yeah.
Wow. That is so organic. That's so
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Which podcast is it? Because I know you guys talk about some different podcasts.
So
Is
there's
it?
70 millimeter is the one that so the friend that I was talking about, the recommending the mic, the
Yeah.
main guy Slim, like are you guys familiar with Letterboxd at all?
Only through your podcast, man. That's a
Okay.
movie
So
rating.
yeah, so
Did you
that's
know
what
it,
I was
John?
gonna
Or
say. If you guys are gonna do like this movie club or whatever, I would recommend it because it's technically social media, but like I don't use like Instagram or Twitter or anything anymore.
uh
This is the
huh.
only social media that I use because it's basically all it is logging movies, and you can see like what movies your friends log and like what they rate them and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that's what we use. But anyway, so it's a New Zealand company, and they have a podcast and this guy Slim, he hosts that with a woman in New Zealand named Gemma, and then he also has his own podcast with his friends, and that's kind of like how we all congregated. And then there's a
Oh,
few
it's
other like
amazing.
yeah, there's one that's it's called Dune Pod. It's focused entirely on the Dune movie, and like
That's John.
every
That's John's
episode.
wheelhouse.
Okay, so yeah, so but they're probably the biggest one because the two guys that run it, they were one of them is like a financial officer for the Democratic National Conference, and the other one was like Barack Obama's social media manager. So they
Whoa.
pull like yeah, each episode they House of the Dragon and Westworld and stuff like that come on. So
Wow. Yeah,
yeah, I
that's
get a
pretty
lot
big
of tips
time.
from them. Yeah, yeah,
That's great. What a great in. Yeah. Well, that's super cool. It's funny. Yeah, I've heard you guys mention Letterboxd, and I just sort of equated that it's sort of a movie because they do also they probably have like a rating for each like all the users of Letterboxd, they come up with a rating for each movie. Because I remember, I think you were talking about Argentina 1985, and that you all were kind of surprised how high rated it was on Letterboxd. Not that it didn't deserve
it's
that,
because
but
it's
it was,
new. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, it's it's like they do an aggregate of like everyone that's logged it, and so if only because it's a new movie, so if only a handful of people log it, and like they all rate it really high, so they tend to even out. Like right now we're doing Wakanda Forever on our next episode. I'm actually, as soon as I get off with you guys, I'm getting on with them to talk about that.
Awesome.
But yeah, I've been kind of looking at the reviews for that, and it's like super high, and I'm sure it'll even out. So
sure, eventually, because
it's kind of interesting to watch.
Yeah. We might have to get on there, John.
Care about what Rotten Tomatoes says about reviews and stuff. And I'm like, if you enjoy it, you enjoy it. Go ahead. Watch it. Like it's.
That's what. A lot of it's less critically inclined. It's more like actual people, like people love movies for different reasons. So. I was definitely like a film bro in my 20s. I feel like I've kind of like moved away from that, and just I feel like I'm a little bit less pretentious than I used to be. So.
You have a little more balanced outlook now. You can still have the particular things that you look for, but understand that different people have different tastes than you now. Like maybe that's the insight, right?
That's what. I've actually, your guys' episodes on movies, like your trilogy one, and like the ones where you talk about your favorite directors and stuff. Yeah, those were obviously some of my favorite ones, because I know all those. Like I've got a Lord of the Rings tattoo, so I was all about that. And and Kev, like I grew up in Anaheim, so I was all about the Mighty Ducks when that came out.
Totally.
So.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. I kind of forgot. I kind of didn't think about that.
And too bad we didn't do the trilogy movies episode now, because Clerks 3 came out, so that's now a trilogy.
Yeah. I still haven't seen it, but yeah.
Oh no, he ended that trilogy very well.
I've heard. I've tried to stay away from spoilers, but I've heard a couple things.
Yeah, no, it's on iTunes. You can buy it now.
Yeah, because Ron, aren't you a pretty big Kevin Smith fan yourself, or?
Yeah, or at least I actually haven't seen like his last few movies. But I definitely was. Or like Clerks and Dogma in particular were big for me when I was like in high school. So, yeah.
Random segue that I just saw Alanis Morissette in concert, and it was cool because I bring her up because she's in Dogma, obviously, and spoiler alert, plays God in Dogma. So, but she does this amazing intro before she comes on, and it includes all these little clips of her throughout her career and being on various talk shows and things like that. And there's a clip of her being God in Dogma, and it was just that nice. That's what I think of when I think of that movie and when I think of Alanis Morissette. So it was pretty cool to see that.
That's cool. Yeah. Did she play the song for Taylor Hawkins?
Yeah, she did. Yep. They did a minute where they put up they didn't ask for a moment of silence, but they put him up on the board, and that was very cool. Cause we talked about it on our podcast too, John. That Taylor Hawkins was
you did.
Their drummer.
Yeah,
so that was really special.
That's what. I like listening to you guys, because like especially the music and like video games and movie stuff. Like I'm, I mean, Kev, you've played, like Trivial Pursuit with me. Like I'm all about that stuff. So like I like playing along with you guys. Made me realize I need to get it. Like I need to watch all the Ernest movies, because I've never seen any of those. So,
oh, I can't believe that. Ernest seems right in your wheelhouse.
But I know, right? Yeah.
If you watch Ernest movies, Ron, watch it with the context of I'm 14 years old. Like, don't watch it through your current eyes.
I remember, because I remember like KTLA played Ernest Scared Stupid like every weekend, during October and November when I was a kid. But I never, and I remember all the Cerritos Auto Square commercials and stuff. So
totally.
But John, by the way, Sharon Lois and Bram Elephant Show, like I loved that episode. It was like somebody other than me has heard of that. Like,
right.
Super stoked.
That is great. Because as you know, like I was not familiar with them, so that is so cool to hear that hits your wheelhouse. That episode actually, the Sharon Lois and Bram one, got some traction, so it has people behind it. People know it.
That's cool. It was like that and David the Gnome were like the 1-2 punch when I was a kid.
Oh, I don't know that. Dave the Gnome.
Yeah, that was it was early Nickelodeon, like before they had their original programming. Yeah, it was like if you saw an image of it, you would probably know. It's actually
yes.
it's very infamous for like having like the saddest ending to a children's program, because like the main characters just like wander into the woods and die. So
no way. Yeah, no, I 1000% remember this, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know it was called David the Gnome. I would have just referred to it as that gnome show. Do you remember that gnome show that was on?
Yeah.
So bizarre.
Yeah, because in the early days of Nickelodeon, they didn't have their own original programming, so they just borrowed from, mostly from Canada, and then a lot from like the UK and Germany and stuff like that. Like I think David the Gnome was from Denmark or something.
That makes total sense. And was it overdubbed in English, or probably then for Nick?
Yeah.
Or was it probably not? Oh, it was? Okay. Yeah, there was a documentary on Nickelodeon not too long ago. Did you watch that?
Yeah, that was a fantastic documentary. Yeah.
It was super good. John, do you know what we're talking about? That Nickelodeon one?
No, I haven't seen it.
I forget what platform
it's on Hulu.
Oh, it's so good. If you get a chance, John, look it up, because it sort of gives a history.
Make that be one of your picks, Kevin, for Movie Club.
That's not a bad idea. I did think about when I pick something that a documentary would be a cool one to pick, because I love documentaries. I love learning. Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe I will, and then that'll force you to watch it, John.
Cool.
Well, that's so just Letterboxd again, really quick. On Letterboxd, you can make lists of movies, and like I have a whole list of documentaries on my Letterboxd.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a Letterboxd, and then we can connect, and then you can share that list with me, I'm assuming I can see that list, and because I love watching documentaries.
Yeah, I might end up making one too, but no, evidently no one in our movie club, Ron, has seen Dirty Dozen.
Oh yeah, we talked about that. Huh?
It's funny that you bring that up, because Dirty Dozen. So my last name's Jimenez, and one of the first dudes to die in Dirty Dozen. Spoilers. But there's a character in there named Jimenez, but everyone calls him Mayonnaise, and I didn't pick up on that until I think I was 17 when I saw it. But when my dad was a kid, everyone called him Mayonnaise because he was 9 when that movie came out. And I was like, how come everybody calls us Mayonnaise? And it was because of that movie. So yeah, fantastic movie. And Kev, if you're an Inglourious Bastards fan, definitely check out Dirty Dozen, because
or if you like Suicide Squad.
Or Suicide Squad too. Yeah.
I haven't seen Suicide Squad either, but I do love Inglourious Bastards. I also want to point out that we've spoiled Dirty Dozen, we've spoiled Dogma, and we've spoiled the Gnome Show.
We have not spoiled Dirty Dozen.
We've given some kind of spoiler, which is great.
And what's funny, Kevin, is there's a connection between the two movies that I said, Dirty Dozen and Paint Your Wagon.
Oh, really? Do I have to wait to see it? I'll wait
Lee
to
Marvin.
see it. Oh, okay. Oh, he's in both of those?
Yep. Yeah, he's in both of them.
Okay.
And I'm really surprised Ben had never heard of Paint Your Wagon, being a big fan of musicals, because Paint Your Wagon is one of the biggest musicals from the 70s. It's got Lee Marvin, Clint Eastwood.
That was good. Yeah, that was it was a big deal that Clint Eastwood made that, because he was this tough guy. There's a gag in one of the Simpsons episodes where Homer and Bart rent it, and then they're disappointed when they realize it's a musical. I think there's a line where Bart's like, "Paint your wagons with blood, I bet," and then he comes out singing, and they're like, "What is this?"
That's great. Yeah.
It's such a funny one though.
That movie is funny. That's what you're saying.
I don't think I've seen clips of it. I don't think I've ever seen it all the way through.
Well, so spoilers, Kevin, because I honestly don't know if it's on any streaming service, so I don't know if we'll actually watch it or not.
Okay.
I know Dirty Dozen's on Netflix, but no, in Paint Your Wagon, it takes place during the California Gold Rush, and so there, Clint Eastwood and Lee Marvin's character, Lee Marvin's character is just a drunk essentially.
Okay.
But they end up having a claim together for gold. And they're digging, and then this Mormon comes to town with multiple wives, and he auctions off one of the wives for money, and Lee Marvin's character drunkenly wins it, and then
wins the wife.
They've got he wins the auction.
Okay,
and then the whole town, they've got a parade going on from town square to his cabin and whatnot, and you just and marriages were treated as property and stuff back in the day, and so you just hear someone shout, "I'll help you work your claim."
Oh, that's funny. Oh, meaning the wife.
Yep.
That's clever. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, there's a love story and all that, but just like any musical for the most part, but there's a lot of humor in it, and it's got Clint Eastwood and Lee Martin, two of these big, action stars from the 60s and 70s, and
Yeah,
but
very
it's
surprising.
one that like almost no one knows about.
And Lee Marvin's mustache is immaculate in it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
His handlebar and his sideburns. Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna look it up right now. Paint Your Wagon. You may have to add that to your. Oh yeah, okay. It's funny. I'm seeing the images of it, and I'm like, oh yeah. I've seen this. I haven't seen this movie, obviously, but oh yeah, look at that mustache. Yeah. It's like connected to his mutton chops. It's like a whole. Mm-hmm. It's like a whole thing. Wow, that is fantastic. Yeah. There might be my next Halloween costume. There it is, right there. All right, cool. This is awesome. It's good to talk movies. You're living up to your expectation, Ron. Let's you guys wanna hop into the episode? You feel ready?
Sure.
Yeah.
I got your questions, Ron. I sent them to John. I have not looked ahead. We're just gonna look kind of one at a time at them, or do our best to. So try to be as raw as possible.
Yeah, that works.
And our
I tried to be kind of broad.
Okay, cool. I'm excited. Yeah, I literally have very little. I don't know what to expect, and that's what I love. So this is gonna be great. I'll play the little jingles, and we'll do our tidy up and our quiz time and all that. Nice. But we'll just make it conversational as we are doing. So, okay, I'm gonna hit the theme song here. We got 3, 2, 1. John, like second, lives in Indiana, Kevin likes the Dodgers and talks on the radio. John plays games on Xbox and on his Nintendo, while Kevin runs around LA with his mustachio. It's the Lack of Genius podcast, in your ear holes at last. They don't know they're Mars from Venus, that's why it's the Lack of Genius podcast. Hey, you know what, John? That jingle does not mention anything about us liking movies, but we do like movies. We may have to add a line in there about that. Yeah.
I think you need to go back and redo that.
Yeah,
we'll have to rewrite the song.
Yes, exactly. And there may be potential. I'll just rewrite the whole song. Let's just start from scratch. The reason I am alluding to movies is because this episode is focused on movies, specifically Latin American movies. But that's because we have our guest is Ron Jimenez. Welcome, Ron. Hello, first of all.
Hey, ¿qué tal, fellas? How you doing?
Hey. Doing all right. Ron is the host of the podcast Real Latinos, and it is a podcast. Well, actually, I'm not going to say much about it. I'm going to let you talk about it. And in fact, Ron, tell us about your podcast, Real Latinos.
So it's called Real Latinos, spelled REEL, as in movies.
Clever.
So it's myself and my two friends Ismail and Guti. We are 3 Latinos, and we like movies, and we kind of wanted to do a podcast spotlighting Latin American films and filmmakers, because we kind of feel like they don't get talked about enough. So we kind of wanted to try and encourage people to seek out some stuff that maybe they wouldn't otherwise. So we put out episodes every Thursday, and we try to bounce around between stuff, more popular stuff like Coco or like La Bamba. We just did an episode on Stand and Deliver, and then also maybe some deeper cuts from like the 50s and 60s from like South America and Central America that maybe people might not have heard about.
Cool. I will say your mission is already being accomplished, because as a listener of this podcast, I've already watched some movies that I probably wouldn't have watched otherwise. Yes. The one that comes to mind is Argentina 1985, which is kind of a
very cool.
Now, a lot of people talking about it, and I maybe would have pushed. I remember coming across it on my. Is it on Prime? I can't even remember, but
it's on Prime.
I remember coming across it and thinking, oh, I might push play on this. And then when I saw you guys were doing an episode on it, I was like, hey, knock it off, guys. I decided I'm going to watch this. And I'm trying to think. And I haven't seen Stand and Deliver. And so I know I haven't listened to your episode on that yet, because I want to watch the movie and then I want to listen. So, and you've also, go ahead,
James Olmos in it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Edward James Olmos, Lou Diamond Phillips. Yeah, it was big in the 80s, especially if you're educators. I'm actually kind of surprised if anybody like roughly our age has seen it, because that kind of seemed to be like the go-to, bring the TV with the VCR into the classroom and pop that in like on substitute days. So
no way.
But
That's funny.
Yeah. It's early 1980s, East LA, a teacher and a student's movie. So
and you didn't cry during Argentina 1985, Kevin, right?
Is that a "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina" joke, John? Is that what just happened?
Yes, it is.
I didn't cry, but there was a lot of emotional scenes in that movie. That is for sure. That is, and you know what I'll say is, I'm not making you go down this rabbit hole right now, Ron, but I really would suggest listening to Real Latinos, just because I of you as hosts and your chemistry together, that this is sort of a side tangent that you're developing, but because you just met doing this podcast, but you guys sound like you've known each other for years, which is awesome. But Ron shared a really I would say emotional, like really a connection to the movie that he had, because that movie does go into a lot of the violence that happened within the country, and spoil what the movie or what you talk about, Ron, but I love that you're able to go down these layers and sort of talk about not just what it means to be a Latino or a Latinx person in this world, and what these movies mean to you, but also have real life experiences to kind of tie them back home. So you guys are doing a great job, is what I'm saying.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I will admit I have not yet listened, but I will take Kevin's word for it.
John, did you listen to the first 30 seconds of an episode though?
I did.
Yes, it was the episode. I forget the movie.
I suppose.
You were nice enough, Ron, to include a promo. It was is it what is it?
Macario.
Macario, yes. Which
Macario,
sounds,
yeah.
Spoiler alert, not for the movie, but for that episode, if you go and listen to it, the first 30 seconds is a promo for the Lack of Genius podcast that Ron was not to play. You'll hear mine and John's voice talking about what we do on our podcast, and then the episode comes in, and that movie sounds fascinating. It's a Dia de los Muertos movie, essentially, right? Like that's
right.
It sounds amazing. Just go listen to the episode. It sounds like a great movie that I want to check out. So, but
yeah, it's kind of like it's like a Christmas Carol, but Dia de los Muertos.
Exactly. Thank you. There you go. There's the pitch that I'm sure was given when it was first created. But what we have you on here today, Ron, that I think I already said, but you are quizzing us on Latin American movies, and we will get into the quiz, so you don't have to be specific, but what can we look forward to once we get into quiz time? Like what is with Latin American movies? What are you excited to share? Fill in the blanks.
So my history with Latin American movies is, I'm Mexican American. I grew up in Southern California, so there's a very, very large Mexican American population here. And I grew up watching stuff like La Bamba and Stand and Deliver because that's what my grandma had on all the time. But that was kind of it up until recently, really. And kind of my personal, each of the hosts have our own personal reasons for wanting to do the show. But for me, it was more about connecting with the part of my culture that that maybe I wasn't aware of. And also too, like the three of us have kind of encountered like my two co-hosts, myself and Ismail, we're both Mexican American, but Guti, our other co-host, he's Nicaraguan American. And and one of the things that comes up for him frequently is people, whenever he says that, people ask him what part of Mexico that's in, and it's a completely other country. And there's kind of a thing where to a lot of people, anything south of the United States border is all Mexico, and there's a whole lot of other stuff below that, and with their own histories and cultures and things. And so that's kind of what we want to explore, and what I want to explore for myself, because I don't know, because I have a lack of genius in a lot of that.
Well, I will speak for myself, and I'm assuming John, but like I certainly have a lack of genius in that area. John makes jokes sometimes about me being able to play my Mexican card. This might be a good time to say that I am half Mexican. And so just in case anything comes up in this episode, that is where that is coming from. But I certainly I will fully admit that I am not as plugged into my Mexican heritage in general as much as I wish I were, and I can certainly make changes about that now. But I'm passionate about this because it's a chance for me to step into at least the culture of film within the Mexican community. But then beyond that, I really like what you said about how a lot of people maybe just think anything south of us is, in the US anyways, is all the same. And so I love the diversity and the chance to get to know kind of different nations and the culture of each one. So I'm excited to learn. Did you have something, John?
No, I was just going to ask Ron if they had, talked about John Leguizamo's op-ed that he wrote a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Basically just blasting Hollywood about, just hire Latinos. Don't just,
Yeah, that's something that we get into quite a bit on our show. And it's funny you bring up him specifically because John Leguizamo, for me, from when I was a kid, I know him as Luigi from the Mario Brothers movie.
Me too. That's the first thing I ever saw him in.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but he's not Italian, he's Colombian. And one of the things I frequently talk about Encanto, because the Disney movie from last year, because that cast is entirely Colombian. And that's a huge thing. That's one of the things we talk about diversity in casting and crew, and we also talk about like representation and appropriation and things like that. And so yeah, even if you're not a Disney person or whatever, that's that's fine. But just the fact that they went out of their way to have an entirely Colombian cast in a film that takes place in Colombia and has a lot of like Colombian culture represented in it is a big thing.
I'm not saying anything.
Yeah, no, I thought it was. Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting op-ed, and I know he's had he had a comedy special kind of talking about it, his heritage and everything. That was pretty good and stuff. So it happened to cross on my Instagram because Will Wheaton shared it as well, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll read it. It was a good op-ed. So
yeah,
if you haven't.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that for a lot of people, you wouldn't even think about it, wouldn't even cross your mind. So yeah.
Bringing awareness to a topic that is important to be discussed. That's always good news. Well, let us move forward with our show. We want to get into this quiz, but before we do that, we have to tidy things up. So let's go ahead and do that. Here we go.
Tidy up before we go any further with the show. Tidy up before we go fix our mistakes tonight. I wanna get it right. Tidy up.
I'll do what I guess we refer to as a real-time tidy up. It's more that I neglected to introduce one aspect of Ron's connection to me, and that is that I guess I would technically refer to you as a cousin-in-law, though I think of you as a cousin. You are married to my cousin Elizabeth. I almost was going to say I forgot this. I actually married you, Ron. I performed my cousin Elizabeth and Ron's. Yeah, I married Ron. I did. I performed your wedding.
You officiated the marriage. You didn't marry Ron.
Yeah, exactly. That's the key. That was 10 years ago, wasn't it? 2012, right? Did I remember
10
that?
years ago, yeah. Yep.
Wow. Congratulations on I guess just celebrated 10 years. So and
it's a couple months ago, yeah.
And it's funny because I was going to kind of mention it earlier that you being a Latino person, on my dad's side of the family is of German descent. We're a white family, and so Ron comes in and look, I don't present as Mexican in any way, shape, or form, but it's like, oh look, there's another one of me, coming into the White
right,
House.
yeah.
So it's the one with the handlebar mustache.
I know, yes. I was somewhere just the other day, and somebody was saying something about my mustache, and they not to me. I could hear them talking off to the side, and I heard the words Italian and Mexican come up, and I was like, okay, they're running through their head. What is the mustache connection?
Checking off the boxes. Yeah.
Exactly. I almost was gonna say Mexican. Just wanted to full disclosure mention that. But in terms of actual tidy ups, somewhat related to this episode, John and I wanted to promote something that we just launched as of release of this episode maybe a week or so ago that we have started a log movie club, a Lack of Genius movie club.
Yeah.
Do you want to say something about it, John?
Yeah. So we're doing this on YouTube only. So you're gonna have to scroll over, go over to YouTube and hit subscribe and like and ring the bell or whatever it is that they all say over there.
Ring that bell.
To get notifications of it. But once a month we are releasing a movie club with video, so you can actually see what we look like besides just looking at pictures of us.
Which we know you do all the time. Look up pictures of John Largent and Kevin Schatz. Yeah, it's creepy. We've had enough.
We'll give you moving pictures finally.
There you go.
No, we decided we wanted to bring on I'm sure you guys get tired of just listening to the two of us and random other people. Sorry, Ron, but
sorry, random other person.
So we brought on and so we brought on Ben, who's been on a couple times on this podcast, both about retro video games as well as on Mario. And then we brought Alyssa on. She did one on opera and another one recently on asexuality.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the four of us talking about a different movie each episode. So go check it out.
First episode is up. We did Star Trek Wrath of Khan, which if you know anything about any of us, you can probably figure out who picked that movie. that was a John selection, and it was a lot of fun. Aren't you a Trekkie a bit too, Ron, or am I making that up? Did I make that up? Not really.
I've seen all the movies. I enjoy the movies. My connection to Star Trek is through your family, actually, because I know your grandpa was a big Next Generation fan, and so that's my wife. That's what she has playing all day long while she's working, usually. So
no way.
Yeah, I've seen the last half of a lot of Star Trek Next Generation episodes. So, I dig the Trek. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely talk about that in the first episode, my connection with my grandpa. And mm-hmm. You may not know this, Ron, but my dad, as a result, is very much into Star Trek through my grandpa and my Uncle Steve, your father-in-law. In fact, the last time I really talked in depth with him, he was saying that he was watching a lot. He was finally figuring out how to use Netflix and he's like, oh, I can watch a lot of Star Trek on these things. This is great. And so, I know he's been digging in.
Go set up Paramount Plus for him, Ron.
Yeah. We have a Paramount Plus account, so I'll share the password.
Yes, if it hasn't already been,
get him all the new stuff.
He'll be on board with that. So, so please feel free to check out our YouTube page and follow along with the Log Movie Club. And just as a general reminder that I decided to throw in this tidy up is, we are so appreciative of this Lack of Genius community. We're excited that we've branched out and found former guests part of this umbrella that we're doing, and we know that we've obviously reduced the amount of episodes that we do. We were doing this weekly, and now we're doing it monthly. And I think even this, what we're going to try to do is do it. This is going to be a every 2 weeks kind of thing, but we realize there's a little bit of fluctuation in that. And my whole point is that if you're hearing this right now, you were part of this. You were part of this club. We really appreciate that you have stuck with us through kind of the ups and downs and the inconsistencies and and we 1000% are moving forward with this podcast and with this community. And we would love your support. This is not a plug for Patreon, though. Feel free to go check out Patreon and give us money. That's always welcome. But if you get a chance to whatever platform you're listening on, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a rating. These things go a long way for us. And John and I were joking, we don't really say that on our podcast very much. We're not the type that always reminds you to subscribe, rate. So we're just going to throw it in this tidy up section as a very just sort of humble request that if this is a podcast that you enjoy, or even if you hate it, don't be afraid to go out, give us a rating. Subscribe if you haven't already. Feel free to leave us a comment, because we really want to get more and more ears and eyes on us, just because, quite frankly, I'm really proud of this, and I think John is too. And we want to be able to reach more people. So whatever way you see to support us, we appreciate it.
Yeah, and don't forget likeofgenius.com/store.
Yes, you can spend money there as well. You can buy yourself a shirt. That's a good way to promote us. Look, we're gonna keep going regardless of if if nobody listens to us, or if tons of people listen to us, so nothing's going to change. But we grow with the support of you listening right now. So anything you feel like doing to show your support, we certainly appreciate. And I feel very tidied up after saying. So let's get into our Latin American quizzes here. I'm gonna hit the quiz time jingle and we're gonna get this party going. Here we go.
It's time to take a quiz or two, like a genius podcast doing this for you. You may fail, but it ain't no lie, baby, it's quiz time. Don't really want this quiz to be tough, I just want to pass one cause I failed enough. It might sound crazy, but it ain't no lie, baby, it's quiz time.
Ron Jimenez is here to give us a quiz on Latin American history, or as I don't know him as this, but as his niece knows him, Schmonold is here to give us a quiz on Latin American history. And as I usually like to do at this point, I'm just going to hand the reins over to you, Ron, and you could start asking us our questions, and we'll see how much genius we lack on this topic.
All right.
Is there a handicap for Kevin since he's your cousin-in-law?
No, none whatsoever. So, like I said, I've listened to your guys' movie episodes, so I think you guys are on a pretty even playing field here.
Oh, great. Excellent. Yes. And by the way, I think you maybe mentioned this in the real episode. I've lost track, but we did do a pre-show with Ron, and there's a lot of good talk about movies and our connection. So feel free to you can hear that on our Patreon page if that's something you're interested in.
All right. Should we get started?
Yeah, let's do it. Here we go.
Okay. So first, are either of you familiar with the term Three Amigos of Cinema?
No.
I know the Three Amigos.
Yeah, but no, not that term.
Okay, so the Three Amigos of Cinema is the name that's given to three prominent directors: Alfonso Cuarón, Guillermo del Toro, and Alejandro González Iñárritu. Have you heard of any of them?
Yes.
I've heard of the middle one.
Okay.
The first two.
Yeah, you've definitely heard of movies that they've directed. Yeah. So
Cuarón just won a Oscar a few years ago, right?
Well, so I bring them up because all three of them are Mexican directors, and all three of them have 5 Best Director Oscars between them over the last decade. Yeah. Wow, so Cuarón won for Gravity and Roma, Del Toro won for The Shape of Water, and Iñárritu won for The Revenant and Birdman.
That's right.
Wow.
Oh yeah, Birdman. That's a fantastic movie.
Yeah. So
Michael Keaton is a fantastic actor.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. But the three of them got their start in independent cinema. So they made the leap from independent Mexican cinema in the 90s to, like now big, prestigious, like award-winning films nowadays. In between, they dabbled in some big budget genre fiction. So a couple of them have taken part in some movies that probably the two of you and a lot of your listeners have seen. Mm-hmm. So the question is, which movie franchise has a member of the Three Amigos of Cinema not participated in? Marvel Comics. So I'm sure you guys are aware of the Marvel superhero movies.
Yes.
That A, Marvel Comics. B, Middle Earth. So the Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. Okay. C, Star Wars. Or D, The Wizarding World of Harry Potter. Which one of those has not had any participation by any of these directors?
Wow. And all 4 of those are huge franchises, right? John, do you know this?
I'm trying to remember if Hellboy is DC or Marvel.
It's neither.
It's neither. What is it?
It's neither. Okay.
It's a Dark Horse Comics, yeah.
Oh, yeah. By the way,
Dark Horse was owned by one of them, was an imprint. Just like Vertigo.
Ron is a comic.
I'm a very big comic guy. Yeah.
He's gonna know. He is gonna know. In fact, we have to have you on for that in a future episode.
Yeah, because I know Del Toro did the Hellboy series, except for the newest one.
Correct.
Yes. And there's a connection between those and The Shape of Water, with Doug Jones being in both of them.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, interesting.
Which he is a graduate of Ball State from Muncie, Indiana.
So are you?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep. And he's in the Star Trek Discovery.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, he's Sarek, I believe is his character's name on that.
Saru.
Okay,
Saru.
yeah.
You know what?
John Knowledge Bomb.
It's been a long time since we've dropped a John Knowledge Bomb in, and you just dropped like 7 different things that don't answer the question, but are very impressive that you know all this. I'm really impressed,
It's
John.
my thought process of trying to figure out which answer.
No,
is.
I know, and I didn't mean that disparagingly. I'm just very impressed. And in fact, Ron is also the type of person that's got a lot of knowledge bombs, and we may need to make a special Ron knowledge bomb for this episode. But no, that was very impressive. So there's tangential connections with at least Del Toro to some of this.
Yeah, I want to say the Harry Potter movies, but I don't know for sure.
Interesting. Mine is definitely, as most things go with this podcast, I'm only going to be able to go off a general sense. I don't have any real like hard knowledge of like, oh, well, so-and-so was connected with this. The newer Star Wars movies, and there's so many Star Wars connections now with like the Mandalorian and Andor. I would not be surprised if one of them was engaged with that. The Wizarding World of Harry Potter is what jumped out to me. It just seems like maybe the furthest removed from some of these other franchises where the other 3 are. I mean,
after all,
current.
they were started by Chris. The first ones were directed by Chris Columbus. I mean,
that's right. I'm going to choose D, the Harry Potter universe. What are you thinking, John?
Same.
All right, we're both choosing it.
You both locked in?
Locked in.
Incorrect. The answer is C, Star
Wars. C, Star Wars. Oh, John, man, you got us, Ron. Yeah, tell us more.
Yeah. So Guillermo del Toro, you're right. Guillermo del Toro did helm the first 2 Hellboy films. Before he did that, though, he directed Blade 2, which is a Marvel Comics movie.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Del Toro was also involved in the Middle-earth franchise because he was originally set to direct the Hobbit movies when it was only going to be 2 movies. He co-wrote them with Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, and Philippa Boyens, but there was a lot of money issues with MGM and like issues with rights and stuff, and he worked on it for like a decade and just decided he needed to move on from the project, and so that's why Jackson ended up directing them himself. But Del Toro has a writing credit on all 3 of the Hobbit films. And then Harry Potter, Chris Columbus did direct the first 2 Harry Potter movies. The 3rd movie was directed by Alfonso Cuarón. Yeah,
no
he actually
way.
in 2000 he directed a movie called Y Tu Mamá También, which is a very, very spicy coming of age film. But because of the way that he handled, the relationships in that film, the producers thought that he would be a good fit for the kids in Harry Potter as they grew older, and in my opinion, the Prisoner of Azkaban, the 3rd film, the one that he directed, is the best one of the bunch. So
wow.
None of them.
Completely forgot it.
Remind me the Oscar winning movies that Cuarón did recently.
He was nominated for original screenplay for Y Tu Mamá También back in 2000, but he won Best Picture or Best Director awards for Gravity and Roma within the last 5 years.
Got it. Yes. When I think of Y Tu Mamá También,
he also did Children of Men.
Got it. Y Tu Mamá También, I don't remember a whole lot about it other than, yes, a lot of nudity. There was a lot of naked people in it.
Yes.
So I also remember being
explicit. Yeah.
I remember it being a great film, and maybe something to revisit.
Yeah, I would, because I saw it when it first came out, and I was 19, I think, at the time, and so I thought it was a good film, but I actually just watched it for the podcast a couple of months ago for the first time since. And I definitely got more out of it being the age that I am now with the life experience that I have now out of the film. I don't want to give too much away of the plot, but there's 2 teenagers and then a woman in her late 20s that are the main characters. And there's a lot that goes into where each of them are in their lives at the time.
Got it. And without getting too sidetracked from our quiz, I think that's one of the great things about cinema that I'm learning, especially as we're all approximately the same age in our 30s, getting close to 40 for some of us.
Mm-hmm.
Not John. John's the baby here. But
I'm 36.
I know. I'm trying to make you not feel old, John. I'm doing you a favor. As we get older, there are movies that we saw now, in some cases 20 plus years ago, and so we can see it through totally different eyes now, and this totally different impact on us, totally different experience. And that's one of the things when people talk about like not wanting to age. I'm enjoying that process. I'm enjoying that, like, oh man, I'm seeing things through a more mature, like a not necessarily smarter or wiser necessarily, but just a different lens. So I like that you brought that point up. Just wanted to echo that.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that we kind of hit upon in the movie club episode,
you're right
too. So
you're right. Yep. Same kind of thing. Yep. YouTube.com/lack of genius. So we are 0 for 1 to start, and we can move on to number 2 if you're ready.
Which is a true false question. So you guys got a 50-50 shot here. All right. So Star Wars was not the right answer for the last one, but speaking of Star Wars, the original Star Wars movie was filmed in a Latin American country. True or false?
Interesting. Now, so here's where the word pedanticness comes in, is like, so if any part of it was filmed in a Latin American country, that would make it true, correct? Yeah. So if any part of it was, because when I think about like Tatooine, for example, I do not remember the country, but I know that was filmed abroad. And I in my memory, that is a Middle Eastern country that they filmed that in. But now I might just
Africa.
Yeah. That's what
Libya or Morocco.
That's where my memory is going. Remember. That sounds very. I love that Ron, by the way, is smiling and laughing because he knows this. He knows all of this, and he probably wants us to go down.
I
this
would hope
so.
So you're talking just Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope.
1977 Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. Yeah.
And
so there's no Endor.
Yeah, and Tatooine is prominently featured, but again, I say Tatooine. That's the Tatooine's the planet. Mos Eisley is a city.
Right.
Yeah.
Gosh, again, I'm like thinking, was any part of it filmed in? And look, at that time, Star Wars was not the franchise that it is, was not the well-known film, did not have the big budget. In fact, if my memory is, it was like, it was not seen as even that it was going to be a success, because sci-fi was not these.
Yeah,
sort
most
of cheesy
people involved
sci-fi.
thought it was going to be a huge failure.
Yeah, and so for that, I'm thinking, okay, if this is an American-made movie, maybe they're like, where's an exotic location? Maybe we can go just south of the border somewhere. I'm gonna choose true just because the odds of it seem like it could be yes, that some part of it was filmed in a Latin American country. So I'm gonna choose true. What are you thinking, John?
What are you feeling, John?
I'm saying false.
Locked in?
Opposite of old Kevin.
I think it's a red herring.
Okay. All right. I'm saying true. John's saying false. Right. We're locked in.
The answer is true.
That's me. I got the ding, ding, ding. Sorry, John. You got the...
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes, a large portion of the movie takes place on the planet of Tatooine, which was filmed in the deserts of Tunisia, which is in northern Africa. Okay. And most of the rest of the film was on sound stages in England. But before they attack the Death Star, they're at a rebel base on the planet of Yavin.
Oh, Yavin.
Which was filmed in Guatemala, which the ancient Mayan city of Tikal, the ruins there, that's where they went, and that's the rebel base in Star Wars: A New Hope. So, which is the first of many Latin American connections to Star Wars. Yeah, because that was the first, and then now you've got Jimmy Smits, Pedro Pascal, Benicio del Toro, Oscar Isaac, and then most prominently, Diego Luna is starring in Andor. So, we've got Latin American representation all over Star Wars.
I can't think of her last name. Lupita
Nyong'o. Yeah, that's right. That's true. Yeah. She's Yeah, she was born in Mexico. She's ethnically Kenyan, but she was born in Mexico. She went to college in Mexico. She considers, she has Mexican citizenship. She actually even it's not really a spoiler, but in Wakanda Forever, she actually gets to speak Spanish. She speaks Spanish fluently. Yeah, so
Yes.
and she may pop up later in this quiz too. So
Oh, fantastic! Well, what I was gonna say, do you want to know where I learned this fact that she identifies as Latin American is through Real Latinos podcast through who did it? Was it Gupti or was it your what's your other co-host name? One of them
Ismail.
did did a history of Latin American Oscar winners, and she was one of the she's one of the few to win one. Yeah, got it. So, anyways, okay, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but all right, I'm 1 for 2, John's 0 for 2, so I'm a happy boy, but we'll see. We got 3 more questions to sort this out, who the real winner is. So if you're ready to go forward, Ron, we can do it.
All right. So, speaking of Latin American representation in movies, I'm going to name a handful of actors that are very famous for playing Latin American roles. So we've got Antonio Banderas, famous for playing El Mariachi in Desperado and Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
El Mariachi.
Yeah. Al Pacino from Scarface and Carlito's Way. Lou Diamond Phillips from Stand and Deliver and La Bamba and Young Guns. And Natalie Wood from West Side Story. So they've all played very prominent Latin American characters. How many of them are actually Latin American? A0, B1, C2, or D3 of them?
This is great.
I think it's A.
You think it's 0 right off the bat. I love it.
Because Banderas is Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
Pacino is Italian heritage, I believe.
Yeah.
Lou Diamond Phillips, I think, is actually Native American.
Oh my God, John.
Natalie Wood is the only one I'm not sure, but I remember there being a lot of uproar about something with casting with West Side Story.
Well,
I want to say that's because they didn't cast Latin American. So I'm just going to go with A, 0.
Well, it's funny because what you kind of just ran through it. The one for sure that I had in my head was Al Pacino. I'm pretty sure he's just straight up Italian. Natalie Wood, I didn't know off of just hearing the name, but once you said West Side Story, I actually think again, Ron, that I learned from your podcast that there was an uproar about Natalie Wood because she did not play. She played Maria. Is that the character in West Side Story?
Right. Yeah. It's a Puerto Rican character. Yeah.
But just recently in the most recent West Side Story, I believe they did cast an actual Latin American woman to play, and maybe she got nominated or won. But yeah, John, you thinking through this first may have just helped me out because I do think Antonio Banderas is Spanish, and Lou Diamond Phillips was the one that I was like, because he played Richie Valens in La Bamba. That's a movie that I definitely grew up on as well, and I was like, oh yeah, but I think you're right. I think he might be Native American, so I'm going to choose what John just chose. I'm going to say 0 as well. I'm going to go for it. We're both choosing 0, it sounds like.
And you're both correct. None of them are actually
all
Latin
right.
American.
Thank you, John.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I
Great question. What a great question. John is the only reason that I definitely would have chosen 1 or 2 if it weren't for John.
Yeah. So I think, Al Pacino was probably pretty glaring. Yes, Antonio Banderas, he's Spanish. And that's another thing that we talk about on the podcast because a lot of people don't differentiate between like Spain and Portugal and Latin American countries. Natalie Wood, yes, very famously was cast as a Puerto Rican woman in Brownface in 1961's West Side Story. Oh. And Lou Diamond Phillips is kind of the red herring because he is Native American and he's Filipino. And one of the things that we talk about quite a bit is kind of the Hollywood's history of the interchangeable minority. And, like as long as your skin's a certain color, they'll slot you into anything. Doesn't matter like where they're supposed to be from. And also too, the fact that in a lot of those cases, you're kind of slotted into playing like maybe an Iranian terrorist or like a member of a Colombian drug cartel, and you don't really get a lot more options than that, because the big roles, the big Latin American roles, are given to people that maybe aren't of that heritage. So, but yeah, we give Lou Diamond Phillips a pass. Like, and one of the things we also talk about is the fact that the Philippines has a lot of shared history of colonization with Latin America. But yeah, these, again, a lot of these things are things that aren't really talked about, or at least didn't used to be talked about. And in recent years, we've moved away from that and been given greater opportunity for like real representation in these movies. So
yeah, I mean, and I probably could have figured out that Banderas was Spanish, but it was actually reading the John Leguizamo art that
Nice.
reminded me. So you can thank him, Kevin.
It's funny because our rule of thumb on this podcast is that we don't do any research once we know we're doing the episode, right?
Right.
But like I've been listening to your podcast as a podcast, Ron, and John read that article because it was interesting. So this is part of our built-in knowledge base. And yeah, to your point, Ron, about this question is like, it's not that we are going to look back on these films from whatever decade, 70s, 80s, 90s even, and just say that everything they did was okay for this kind of representation. But there is a built-in sort of like the times were different, and this wasn't something that people were calling attention to. And it's sort of like why history is so important, because we learn through this. And now today, look, if you hired someone to play Richie Valens, who was a white dude, it not fly. It would not be a successful movie as a result. In fact, wasn't just recently kid from Holes? Why am I blanking on his name? Even Stevens dude.
Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf just played a character in a movie that I don't know if he was supposed to be Mexican, but he very much looked like a cholo,
oh, really?
Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And oddly enough, it was playing at a barbershop. Maybe I'll tidy this up another time, but I remember that was somewhat controversial that just the images of him came out looking like this. But anyways, that could be a conversation we dig into another day. But I think that's a great question, an important question, and always great to be thinking about representation. So, and we both got it right. So 2 for 3 for me, 1 for
good job.
No, is that right? 2 for 3 for me, 1 for 3 for John. Yeah, here we go. Moving forward. Here we go.
All right, so this one was touched on a little bit previously.
Okay.
Got another true false question. So 3 Latin American women have won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. 2 of them won for playing the same role. True or false?
Wow. See, so this is where I played spoiler a little bit. Now I don't think I revealed the answer, but I know that this was mentioned in your podcast, but for me to actually have retained exactly what was said, that would be a miracle. So I do not know the answer to this. The caveat to this question being that, okay, first of all, have 3 Latin American women won Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress? That could be false in and of itself, right? If we're assuming that's true, 2 of them won for playing the same role. So my guess would be that role would probably be Maria from West Side Story.
Well, Maria's not a supporting actress. That's a main role.
Oh, is it? I guess I don't know this for sure.
Yeah, Maria is one of the main characters.
So that changes the game, right? That would have been best.
It would be one of the non-main characters.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, and it's I've never seen West Side Story. Full disclosure, I maybe in high school I saw a musical version of it in high school, but I don't.
Right.
So I don't have a lot of ground to stand on. I love that this question is super interesting, regardless of what the outcome is. What do you think, John? I'm hogging the mic here.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, I occasionally will pay attention to like the Oscars and stuff, but in general, I don't. So I mean, I can't even tell you who won last year for best movie. I mean,
I bet Ron can.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, if it's not something I'm gonna enjoy, I'm not gonna watch it. I just don't care if it's the best movie or not. But
I remember what. Oh no, I don't remember what one, but I do remember I watched one of the ones, House of the Dog. I remember that was nominated, and after watching the Oscars with my sister, I watched that movie. I could not get into it. If anyone saw that, was that right? Power of the Dog.
The Power of the Dog. Yeah.
Power of the Dog. It was somewhat spoiler alert, but it do with the idea of being a gay man in a culture where that doesn't exist within cowboy culture, more or less, right? Western culture. I'm very much going on a side tangent here, but I was kind of bored out of my mind the entire movie. I was like, okay, I love that there's this compelling storyline, but that said, don't trust me.
It's definitely a slow burn.
Movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a slow burn. Anyways, that is not the question we're dealing with. John, are you leaning one way or the other?
I'm not.
Okay. I'm gonna say true because it's such an interesting sounding fact that I want it to be true. So I'm gonna choose true. What do you got?
I'm just gonna go with false because the other true false was true.
Okay. All right. Going opposite.
Locked in. That one is also true.
Oh yeah, John, you had a chance to catch up. I like that you went. I like that you took a bit too in trying to catch up, but it ended up putting more ground between us, huh? So, all right. So let's hear about this.
So, Kev, you did mention that Lupita Nyong'o, she also won for Best Supporting Actress for 12 Years a Slave, but the role that I'm referring to is West Side Story, the role of Anita. In 1961, Rita Moreno won Best Supporting Actress, and 60 years later, Ariana DeBose won for the same role at last year's Oscars. So
that's what it was. That's what it was.
Yeah. Speaking of Latin American representation, the acting categories, the Oscars, Puerto Rican Jose Ferrer was the first Latin American actor to win in 1950 for Cyrano de Bergerac. And Anthony Quinn, who's actually a Mexican actor, has won twice, and Benicio del Toro has also won. So we do have a bit of representation at the Academy Awards.
Yeah, and hopefully that's something that will grow. I mean, I think in general people are tired of kind of a whitewashed world, and so whether it's Latin American culture or African culture or Europe, whatever, I was saying European, but like, yeah, I think people want to see more representation, and so, but it's good to hear that there is a history, and yeah, that was very fascinating. I'm just thinking back to, I was really compelled by listening to that part in your podcast. And so it's cool that it got to cross over here. So thanks for bringing that.
Yeah. So, okay. Last question.
All right.
One more about the Oscars. I keep bringing it up because it's, people are familiar with the Academy Awards. So, which Latin American country has the most wins in the Best International Feature Film category?
Nice.
A, Argentina, B, Brazil, C, Chile, or D, Mexico?
Woo! You have any knowledge on this, John? Just out of curiosity?
None.
Yeah, I don't think I do either. I'm trying to think what I know about this. So I'm going to read the 4 countries again: Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and Mexico. Which Latin American country has the most wins in Best International Feature Film at the Academy Awards? Brazil jumps out just because when I think of Brazil compared to South American countries, this may be totally false, but there's a certain Brazil is quote unquote more developed than some other countries, but that may just be because they just had a big Olympics and that's not true at all. I kind of want to choose, and Mexico obviously being so close in proximity to the United States makes me think, oh, maybe Mexico has a large representation, but I kind of want to choose either Argentina or Chile just because of what I just said, just because in some sense there's an underdog aspect to it. I think I'm going to choose Argentina for no real valid reason other than the ramblings that I just presented. So, what What about you, John?
I'm just gonna go with Mexico because I know that there's a lot of art and stuff that comes from Mexico. They are a very artistic country in general.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna go with Mexico.
Okay, I got Argentina. John's got Mexico. How do we do?
Argentina is the correct answer.
Oh.
Wow, you know what, John? I'm sorry. I'm half Mexican, so it was just meant to be that I was gonna kill it on this quiz.
No, you're his cousin-in-law. That's what.
Is it the cousin-in-law connection, not the
advantage.
Mexican connection?
Mexico does have the most nominations. Mexico has 9 nominations, but they only have 1 win. Argentina has 7 nominations, but with 2 wins. 1985's The Official Story, and 2009's The Secret in Their Eyes.
Wow. What do you have any idea what The Official Story was about? I know that's random.
No,
but,
it's on my watch list. Yeah. All of the movies. All of the movies are on our pool list for what we might cover on the show, but haven't gotten to all of them yet.
There's almost a certain degree where you feel almost maybe obligated, like, okay, well, these are international winners and they come from Latin American countries. We probably should include these on our podcast.
Yeah. We also try to bounce around too. Like we did, we were very heavy on Mexico the first few episodes just because like they were popular movies. And then we started to branch out more, but we've covered like 3 Argentinian films already. So, we try and bounce around to the different countries and showcase stuff from different places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's part of why I asked that question of whether what was the movie again? The Official Story. The Official Story. I just wondered if it had anything to do with the story of Argentina 1985, which is the movie we talked about earlier. So,
right, yeah.
Well, and here's what I'll say too about why I think A, just Latin American films in general are so important, but B, why I will continue to promote your podcast, Ron, and what you're doing, because I don't know anything about like the story behind Argentina 1985, which is the violence of the dictatorship that existed there, and the basically it's the story of the trial of these leaders of a violent military dictator, like genocide essentially, and they're being held on trial, and I had no knowledge of that whatsoever. So your podcast opened the door for that, for me to watch this movie. So however you get the information, that's up to you. I'm supporting my cousin-in-law's podcast, but I think that is why these films are important, because I do think in us being American, we have not been privy to a lot of, especially South American history. I'll include Mexico, Central, any Latin American history is very foreign to me, and I would guess that I'm not alone in that. So it's great to have those doors opened.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So, man, Ron, you've done an awesome job for us, by the way. Like, it's funny because I'm not surprised by this at all, but part of the reason that this podcast is so fun for John and I to do is that we get to make these quizzes, and I have a lot of fun putting questions together, and I can see that I'm not surprised at all that you put together questions that were very fun and thought provoking. So, so thank you for coming on with us. This episode as in terms of recording, probably going to drop in about a week or two. So what can we have? What should we look forward to with Real Latinos? What is something that you want to plug or promote that's going on in your world?
So yeah, I mean, the next episode we're covering Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which just came out a couple of days ago. As soon as I get off with you guys, I'm gonna go hop on with my guys and record that. So we're also going to be covering Andor on Disney Plus once it wraps up in a couple of weeks. We're going to be Guillermo del Toro has a new Pinocchio movie coming out in December that we're going to be covering. So if any of those interest you, hop in and listen to those, and then maybe check out some of the other movies that aren't quite as well known. So we're available on pretty much any podcasting app, and you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Real Latinos, REELLATINOS, and we'd be happy to have you and hear what you have to say.
There are enough episodes.
Thank you a lot, Ron. So
you've been awesome. There are enough episodes of your podcast already that if you need sort of a a bridge to get you in. You know, Coco is literally the first episode, and and then you can dig into the stuff that maybe you wouldn't be on your radar normally. So I'm excited to keep listening, Ron, and keep supporting what you're doing. And thank you, by the way, just for being, I know you listen to our podcast and you've been such a great support to us
likewise,
really from day one. So thank you for that. That means a lot. Ron Jimenez, you are a gentleman and a scholar, and maybe we'll have you back to talk comic books, because you are probably more well-versed in that than anyone on this planet.
Sounds good to me. Thanks for having me. I've had a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right. Catch y'all next time. Thanks a lot. Lack of Genius Podcast. Bye-bye.